Welcome to Lesson 52, where we tackle the three names you'll see on every job posting and every ticket queue: AWS, Azure, and GCP. Together, these hyperscalers run roughly 70% of the cloud market, and almost every enterprise you'll ever support touches at least one of them. Here's the good news. They're the same concepts wearing different brand labels. Over the next few pieces, we'll map regions, availability zones, and core services across all three so you can read any vendor's docs without flinching. Before we dive into services, let's ground ourselves in geography because the cloud is very much a physical thing. Every provider organizes its world in the same three layers. A region is a city or metro, like Frankfurt or Northern Virginia. Inside that region, you'll find 2 to 6 availability zones, each one an isolated cluster of data centers wired together with fast fiber. On top of that sits a third layer, edge locations, hundreds of small caching servers scattered worldwide that pull static content close to your users and drop latency from 200 milliseconds down to 20. Region, AZ, Edge, same hierarchy at AWS, Azure, and GCP, just different brand names on the map. With that geography in mind, let's look at what actually runs inside those regions. Starting with AWS, the market leader. The catalog has over 200 services, but honestly, 7 of them cover 90% of what you'll ever see in a ticket. EC2 gives you virtual machines. Build by the second, S3 stores files in buckets at about 2 cents per gigabyte. RDS handles your managed databases, while Lambda runs little snippets of code on demand. And the trio of VPC IAM and CloudWatch wraps everything in a private network, controls who can do what, and watches the metrics. Learn these names, and AWS architecture diagrams stop looking like alphabet soup. Now here's the trick that unlocks all three providers at once. Every concept you just learned in AWS exists in Azure and GCP. They just slap different brand names on it. A virtual machine is EC2 in AWS, virtual machines in Azure, compute engine in GCP, object storage, S3 Blob Cloud Storage. Same idea, 3 labels. Memorize one row of this table and you'll recognize the equivalents instantly when a ticket or architecture doc mentions the other 2. That's vendor-agnostic fluency in a single picture. Let's apply that lens to Azure, Microsoft's cloud, number 2 in market share, but often number 1 inside enterprises running M365, Active Directory, and .NET. The building blocks map cleanly. Azure VMs are EC2, Blob Storage is S3, Azure SQL is your managed SQL server, and Functions is Lambda's twin for serverless triggers. The piece that really matters day-to-day, though, is Entra ID, formerly Azure AD, the identity backbone behind every M365 login. SSO and MFA prompt a junior tech will touch. And tying it together, Azure DevOps for pipelines, App Service for web apps, and AKS for Kubernetes, the full Microsoft developer stack. Now to GCP, Google Cloud, third in market share but the fastest growing, and a favorite anywhere data and machine learning matter. The same building blocks are here. Compute engine for VMs, cloud storage for objects, Cloud SQL for managed databases, and Cloud Functions for serverless. But the real reasons teams pick GCP are BigQuery, a serverless data warehouse. You just query with SQL, no infrastructure to babysit. Vertex AI for machine learning with Gemini baked in. And GKE, the gold standard for Kubernetes since Google invented it. Now let's put it all together with 4 real tickets you might see on day 1. A 403 error uploading to S3 is almost always an IAM or bucket policy issue. Check permissions, region, and encryption requirements before anything else. Onboarding 100 employees, that's an Entra ID job. Bulk import, license assignment, MFA, conditional access, need managed Postgres. Don't introduce a second cloud. Use RDS, Azure Database, or Cloud SQL depending on where you already live. And for EU data residency, know your regions per provider. EU, West 1, North Europe, Europe West. Same problems, different brand names. That's the whole game. Before we wrap up, here's your survival vocabulary. 12 terms that show up everywhere across AWS, Azure, and GCP docs. Region and AZ define where your stuff physically lives. EC2, S3, RDS, and Lambda are the AWS Big Four: compute, storage, databases, serverless. VPC is your isolated network. IAM controls who can do what, and Edge handles cached content close to users. Intra-ID and BigQuery round out the Azure and GCP side. Learn to recognize these on site. That's junior cloud fluency in one slide. Now let's puncture 5 myths that trip up almost every junior tech. AWS isn't automatically best. Azure dominates Microsoft shops. GCP rules data analytics. Fit beats popularity. Multi-cloud isn't free wisdom. It doubles your operational pain. So pick one primary. Regions aren't interchangeable. Latency, cost, and data residency laws make that choice architectural. S3 storage is cheap, but egress will bite you on the bill. And Microsoft 365 isn't Azure. It runs on Azure, but it's a separate SaaS product. Always clarify which one a ticket actually means. And that's lesson 52 in the books, Hyperscalers Locked In. You now know that AWS, Azure, and GCP are built on the same core ideas: regions, availability zones, and edge locations, just wearing different brand names. Next up in lesson 53, we shift to cloud security and the shared responsibility model. The provider secures the cloud, but you secure what's in it. And remember, the number one breach of 2026 is still misconfigured S3 buckets. 2 more cloud lessons, plus the capstone, and stage 7 is yours. See you in 53.